Revealed, the sinister curse of the haunted Viking sword that dooms all who discover it. The night of despair had begun with the eerie creak of the floorboards, an ominous whisper that promised something dark lay within the depths of their crumbling home in Edgewater. Rachel shouted for her son, Jake, to keep the lights on, but deep down, she felt a creeping dread spiral within her. They had stumbled upon a Viking sword buried beneath layers of dust and decay, shimmering under the dim light, a relic of a past she couldn't quite grasp yet knew enough not to touch. The moment Jake dug it out, she felt a shiver slide down her spine, a warning echoing against the cold air. "Mom, look!" Jake held it triumphantly. But behind that moment, a sinister weight pressed down on Rachel's chest. Uncertainty swirled between them, heavy as fog. The legends about cursed artifacts played in her mind, tales she had not wanted to believe, but the chilling anticipation of what could come next unnerved her. As Jake polished the sword, he muttered strange phrases, words that curled through the air like smoke, foreign and haunting. She watched him, eyes wide, as if he were slipping away, his spirit tangled in the enchantment of the blade. The shadows danced wickedly as night swallowed their home, and a chilling howl outside made her flinch. It wasn't just the wind, it was something else, a presence, and suddenly, the basement felt too small, too constricting. The rumors spread through Edgewater like wildfire. Their neighbors whispered about how the sword brought misfortune, of families torn apart and nights filled with relentless terror. Rachel pulled herself up, shouldering the weight of fear. It wasn't just about her and Jake anymore, it was their home too, a place where dreams once thrived but now echoed desperation. Ramen noodles on the table and flickering lights overhead. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The thump started that night. The scratching at the walls sounded like nails dragging, tearing at the fibers of reality. The air thickened, and a chill crept into her bones. Whenever Rachel inched closer to Jake, attempting to pull him back from whatever dark allure the sword held, he would freeze, transfixed, eyes glazed like a doll's. She was losing him. In those ghostly moments, all she could cling to was a desperate fear. What if he went too far into the shadows, too deep into a past they'd never wanted to uncover? That night, Sam appeared, an old friend, but now an unsettling presence. He wanted to leverage the relic for fortune, wielded by his desire and exceeding greed. There's power in that sword, Rachel. Think about what we could do, what we could have. But Rachel felt his enthusiasm envelop her with a sense of suffocating dread. She refused to let the curse swallow them. As emotions boiled, the line between friend and foe blurred, each side pulling her into darkness. When Jake confronted two local boys about the sword, whispers engulfed the darkened room that night, shadows whispering secrets both familiar and foreign. "Give it to us, loser." They laughed. This was it. The moment where the past would clash violently with the present, and Rachel's breath caught in her throat. Would courage break the chains of the curse, or would it tighten its grip around their family, drowning them in an irrevocable legacy? She stood at the edge of a chasm, her heart racing as the shadow of her past loomed ahead, alerting her to the fight of her life to save her son and herself from the bloodied hands of history. The night deepened, drenching Edgewater in a suffocating darkness that seemed to pulse with its own heartbeat. Rachel couldn't shake the feeling that the sound of scraping nails at the walls was getting closer, the rhythm matching her rapid pulse. Every thump reverberated through her bones, and she held her son tightly, desperate to protect him from whatever malevolent force had awakened. "Jake, please, just put it down," she whispered, urgency flooding her voice. But he didn't respond. Instead, he clutched the sword like a lifeline, his smile eerie under the flickering light. She had seen that glint in his eyes only once before, that day he first discovered the sword, and it clutched at her throat, tightening the noose of fear around her heart. "Mom, it's cool. Look at the carvings. It's telling me something." His voice had shifted, becoming tinged with something foreign, something sinister. Rachel's gut twisted. "What's it saying, Jake?" She pressed, willing herself to sound calm, though every part of her screamed to run. He laughed, an unsettling sound echoing in the silence. "It's saying that we don't need anyone else. Just us. Forever." The air felt stale, heavy with the promise of despair. "No, Jake. We need help." The fight of a terrified mother awakened within her. "We need to get rid of it. Now." As she reached for the sword, something inexplicable drew him away, a fierce grasp from the past that kept him anchored to the present. His eyes narrowed, darkened, mirroring something she dared not name. "Why do you want to take it from me? Don't you understand? It wants me. It's calling me." In that moment, the lights flickered ominously and then went out, shrouding their living room into profound darkness. It was complete chaos and stillness mixed together, a blend woven with terror. Rachel felt her breath hitch as the shadows expanded, wrapping around her like tendrils of smoke. They seemed to whisper, taunting her with promises both intoxicating and terrifying. "Mom?" It was barely audible, Jake's voice a soft, trembling echo. "No!" she shouted, panic clawing at her throat. "Stay close." She reached for him, feeling her way through the dark, but he wasn't right beside her anymore. Her heart raced. "Jake!" A strange laughter echoed from the corner of the room, not Jake's, flickering back to life. The surge of light revealed a new presence. A figure stepped forward, its face obscured, shadowy yet crouched in the forgotten corners of their home. "Did you think you could escape the curse?" It hissed, gravel scraping against bone. "You've welcomed it. It's yours now." Rachel stepped back, her heart hammering. In that moment, the truth hit her like a cold rush of ice. It wasn't just Jake the sword had ensnared, it had tightened its claws around them both, binding them to a fate steeped in betrayal and blood. "Don't you see?" The figure stretched a hand, pointing to the gleaming blade that now seemed to hum with a life of its own. "You are forever marked." Before Rachel could scream, she felt cold fingers slide beneath her chin, lifting her gaze to meet those eyes, dark and moving like swirling mists, echoes of past tragedies revealing themselves in their depths. She trembled violently, yet it was Jake's laughter that pierced through the gathering storm. "He's right, Mom, you can't fight it." Her world narrowed into a single agonizing question. How could she save them when the enemy was lurking within? Just then, a loud crash echoed from the basement, reverberating through the walls as if the entire house was collapsing inward. Rachel spun, terror gripping her with icy fingers. "Stay here," she yelled back to Jake, though it was useless. He was already entranced, lost within the whispers spilling from the ancient sword. With one last look, Rachel sprinted toward the sound, her heart pounding in her chest. The darkness seemed to breathe, filling her mind with images of long-gone warriors, rage, and despair. As she threw the basement door open, sparks of lightning illuminated the edges of her fear's shadows that would chain her and her son forever. What horrors awaited her in the dark depths? Her voice quivered in the thick air. "Jake, I'll save you." But as she stepped inside, the door slammed shut behind her. The sudden thud of the door slamming sent a jolt of terror through Rachel's body. Darkness enveloped her, thick and suffocating, like a living entity eager to consume her whole. Panic clawed at her throat as she turned to find it sealed tight. "No," she screamed, pounding against the wood, desperate for escape. Echoes of laughter twisted around her, the sinister sound slithering beneath her skin. The basement was cold, unnaturally so, and as she took hesitant steps forward, her breath formed little clouds in the air. Each crunch of the floorboard sounded a warning that amplified her dread. "Jake," she called again, her voice growing smaller in the silence, swallowed by the creeping shadows. No response. She paused, strained ears tuning into the quiet. Her heart raced, a metronome ticking down the moments before her next decision. Could he really hear her? He had been so lost entranced. What if he was in danger? Casting glances around the dimly lit basement, she saw heaps of boxes and old furniture littering the floor, museum pieces from a life long gone. But it was the corner that drew her eyes. Amidst the debris, a faint glimmer caught the light. She stepped closer, drawn by an unseen magnetism. The sword lay there, pulsating softly, as if breathing. "Jake!" she cried a final time, her mind wrestling with the pull of the weapon. Her fingers tingled, almost aching to reach out and grasp it. What was it whispering now? More promises? Just then, a ragged breath echoed behind her. "Mom." Jake's voice was a haunting echo, barely tangible. Rachel spun, spotting him standing just inches away, eyes glazed over, unfocused. "Jake!" "Thank God." She moved to him, but he remained rooted in place, a statue of confusion. "Mom." "I don't feel so good." He swayed slightly, and alarm surged through her. Instinctively, she stepped in closer, grabbing his shoulders. "No, Jake, listen to me. We have to get out of here. That sword, it's not safe. It wants you." His gaze shifted past her, unfathomable. "I want it, Mom. It knows." Before she could respond, a guttural growl erupted from the shadows. A figure emerged, its form distorting and shifting, the darkness warping around it like liquid smoke. Fear hit Rachel like a punch to the gut. This was the presence from the living room, the one that had threatened them before. "Jake!" She tugged, but he wouldn't budge. The entity smiled, revealing teeth that glistened ominously in the sparse light. "You've come to join us, dear mother. You will not be leaving again." Another dark, sinister laugh echoed, reverberating against the basement walls. Rachel turned back to face Jake, dread pooling in her stomach. "We can resist it together. You have to fight. It's inside you." A piercing shriek filled the basement, and for a moment, the shadows recoiled, almost as if in pain. Rachel used that moment to pull Jake away, but he resisted. "It's too late for me." His eyes dimmed, and tears began to fall, but the determination was crumbling like ash. "No, it's not. We can beat this." She clung to hope like a life preserver in a stormy sea, but Jake's face twisted in agony, and the shadows around them surged like a tidal wave. "Join me, Jake," the creature hissed, dipping into a low whisper that reverberated through the room. "You will be stronger, more alive." Rachel's heart raced. The air grew heavy, oppressive, faltering between her and her son. She reached for the sword, its whispers filling her mind too. The promise of power laced with dread. "Fight it," she begged, stretching out her hand, hoping to pull him back from the brink. But as she grasped the hilt, the basement erupted into chaos. The shadows convulsed, swelling around them like a storm. "Mom!" The sound of Jake's voice drowned in a cacophony of anger and loss while the ground shook beneath them, a cry of suffering resonating from deep in the earth. And then, silence. The darkness split apart as something vast and terrible unfurled against the walls. A taste of blood in her mouth, a whisper promised chaos. The curse was pushing harder. What horrors had she awakened? With her heart hammering and fear wrapping around her throat, Rachel took a shaky breath. The darkness was closing in fast, and her choice loomed. Would she embrace the sword's power to save her son or succumb to the dark fate waiting for them both? But even as she faced the ominous void, a horrified realization set in. Would summoning that cursed weapon save him or lead them both to their doom? Rachel felt the blade tremble in her grip, almost alive, urging her to succumb to its power. The air crackled with an electric charge, the whispers growing louder, swirling around her like a tempest of secrets and lies. "Jake!" She screamed again, the sound barely piercing the oppressive veil of shadows. The air was thick, choked with an unearthly presence that clawed at her sanity. Each breath she took felt like inhaling ice, freezing her with a dread that soured her stomach. The entity loomed closer, its form flickering in and out of focus like a bad projection. It twisted, its long fingers' tips almost touching the sword. It calls to you, does it not? Desperation surged within Rachel. The sword could save Jake, it had to. But could she trust it? Was it really just the darkness whispering sweet nothings, or did it hold the key to liberating her son? Jake, listen to me. She pleaded, forcing her eyes away from the sword and onto her son. This isn't you. Fight back. Jake turned slightly, a flicker of recognition flashing through his glazed eyes, yet the shadows tightened around him like a vice. The laughter echoed once more, wrapping around her heart with icy fingers. He belongs to us now, Rachel. Let go, join him. The shadows crawled toward her, an army of tendrils hungry for her despair. Fear pushed her away from the sword. No! She shouted, voice cracking. I will not lose him. She took a step forward, but as she did, the darkness writhed beneath her feet. The floorboards groaned, threatening to collapse under the weight of the curse. She felt rooted to the spot, her body trapped by an invisible grip. Mom, Jake's voice sounded distant now, like an echo fading through a tunnel. The pain etched across his face twisted Rachel's heart. She could not allow him to be consumed. In that moment, as the tendrils wrapped tighter, she made her choice. With a fierce resolve, she dropped the sword. It clattered on the floor, a defiant chime in the darkness silencing the whispers. The shadows recoiled, hissing in anger. Jake, look at me. She stretched out her hand, urging him to find her in the void. Fight with me. You are stronger than this. He blinked, and for a terrifying second, she glimpsed the boy inside the boy who loved dinosaurs and his mom's silly songs. The shadows flickered, unsure now. Mom, I don't want to be weak, no. You're not weak. Her voice cracked, raw with emotion. You can break free. Remember who you are. In a sudden surge, the entity lunged, black smoke curling like fingers reaching for the sword. The moment was a breath between devastation and hope. There was a glimmer in Jake's eyes as he began to struggle against the creeping darkness. I can't hold it back. Suddenly, a thunderous roar erupted from the basement, shaking the very foundation of their home. The walls trembled, and ancient symbols emerged from the dark, glowing with a malevolent light. Rachel's heart raced. They were running out of time. With another frantic pull, she grasped Jake's arm, feeling the cold seep into her skin from the shadows trying to pull him away. The stench of decay and despair crept into her nostrils, suffocating, overwhelming her senses. Focus, Jake. You need to fight. And as she spoke, something in her shifted. A warmth ignited in her heart, a flicker of power she'd never felt before. Was it the sword? Or was it her love for Jake fueling a force stronger than the darkness? With every ounce of strength, she pulled him toward the light illuminating the basement, as the symbols began to pulse with energy. Together! Rachel shouted, her voice unyielding against the backdrop of chaos. We can do this together. But as they fought their way forward, a sinister chuckle echoed, threading through the air with a palpable malice. Foolish mortals, you think you can break what has been forged in blood? A gust of wind surged, darkening the light flickering around them. Rachel felt her grip on Jake waver. The shadows tightened, contemptuous and merciless. And then, as the very essence of terror threatened to consume them both, a single chilling thought slashed through her mind. What if letting go was the only way to truly save him? The darkness enveloped her, and as she felt the pull, Rachel's heart raced. Could she be brave enough to sacrifice herself for her son? As the shadows twisted and lunged, the dread grip of fate loomed larger than ever. What price was she willing to pay to save Jake from the curse? The darkness pressed in, a tumult of whispers and claws grasping for Rachel's soul. She felt a sharp tug at her heart, fear for Jake, wrenching her insides, and an awful question lingered. What if her love was a tether for the shadows, dragging him deeper into despair? The shadows swirled violently, blackness churning like a living thing. Rachel's grip on Jake faltered, turning into a dizzying blur of faces, not just Jake's, but echoes of others, lost in the dark, victims of this ancient curse. Among the flickering images, she recognized children, mothers, all twisted in anguish. Their eyes pleaded, showing a truth that sent ice seeping through her veins. This wasn't just about her son. The entity thrived on pain, feeding on memories and sorrow. Rachel. Jake's voice broke through, weak but growing stronger. She seized onto those words like a lifeline. He was still there. Mom, I can feel them. The darkness, it wants you. Let go of me. No. I want tea. Her voice cracked, raw with desperation. You're not the darkness, Jake. Fight it. Break free. In that moment, the air shifted. A pulse of energy radiated from the symbols on the walls, casting flickers of light against the encroaching dark. For a fleeting instant, Rachel could sense the warmth edging into Jake, flickering like a candle against a tempest. The shadows hissed, falling back as though stung by the light. Your sacrifice would be a sweet gift, Rachel. Join him. The void leads to peace. The entity roared, its voice a cyclone of despair. Suddenly, a surge of clarity sparked in Rachel's mind. She understood now. A part of Jake was clinging tightly to her, even in the depths of his turmoil. I love you, Jake. We are stronger together. Every moment we shared, every laugh, every song, it fights against this darkness. For a heartbeat, the shadows hesitated, their grip softening slightly as if recoiling from the fierce light of her love. Rachel felt warmth flood her senses, igniting the static buzzing through the air. Together. She shouted. With our love, we can break this curse. We can end this nightmare. Jake's eyes widened, and she saw the fight igniting within him. He drew in a ragged breath suddenly, his internal walls thundering against the claustrophobic shadow veil. Mom, I remember. He gasped. The flicker of memory sparked between them like fire meeting kindling. But even as this hope glimmered, the shadows lashed out in fury, a tidal wave of darkness crashing toward them, the entity's wail echoing an absolute betrayal. Fools! Your memories mean nothing to me. It twisted, tendrils coiling like snakes, ready to snatch away their newfound strength. Rachel felt the pull intensify, as if the shadows themselves desired to tear their connection apart. The chilling whispers screamed louder, her resolve faltering for that awful moment. The light throbbed, pulsing in sync with her heart. The symbols began to vibrate with an unearthly hum, brighter, bolder, as if calling on them to fight back. Channel your love, Rachel. Together. Now. With a scream that ripped through her throat, she tightened her grip and pulled Jake closer. The air sang, crackling with an electric force, a shock wave breaking free from their joined hands. A blinding light erupted, illuminating their path through the shadows. The entity shrieked, the sound piercing the very marrow of her bones. This cannot be. You are mine. The curse has bound you. But they surged forward, fighting against the tide of darkness with each step. Memories wove into a tapestry of light, overpowering the smothering shadows with endless love, a fierce declaration of will. But just as they felt the pull of freedom, a chilling sensation stabbed through Rachel's heart. The entity unleashed a final barrage of darkness, and for an awful moment, everything went cold. They were breaking free, smashing past the veil, but the taste of victory melted, replaced by the sickening realization that the darkness would not relent so easily. As the blinding light dimmed, an uneasy silence fell. Rachel looked around, her instincts screaming that they were not safe yet. A deep rumble shook the ground beneath them. "What have we awakened?" she whispered, dread swelling in her chest. The shadows coiled ominously, readying themselves like snakes to strike again. They could run, but what awaited them in the other world? The moment stretched, fraught with anticipation, as a new terror loomed. "Mom." Jake's voice trembled, pulling her attention. "What if this is just the beginning?" In the darkness, a deeper evil stirred, its hunger insatiable, a chilling truth hanging in the air like a noose. Whatever shackles they had broken, something far worse lay ahead. Rachel's heart raced. What horrors waited for them beyond the threshold of light? The air was thick, palpable with dread. Rachel's heart pounded like a war drum, each beat echoing an insistent warning. The shadows writhed, coiling and unfurling, living entities hungry for unrest. "What have we done?" she murmured, peeling her gaze away from the darkness that appeared no less filled with malice than before. Jake's fragile frame quivered beside her, the weight of uncertainty pressing down on them both. "Mom, it's still here." His voice was small, trembling like a chilled leaf in a storm. Suddenly, the ground quaked beneath them, a violent reminder that dark forces would not be denied. Sudden claps of thunder cracked overhead, though there was no storm. The walls pulsated in response, and memories etched into every corner whispered of past horrors. They stood in the former sanctuary of the brave, now a tomb of agony, a vessel for suffering unleashed. The light felt like a feeble promise. "Look!" Jake pointed trembling fingers toward the shadows that retreated, only to converge again into ominous forms. "It's like they're waiting for something." Rachel tensed, locking onto the quivering darkness, trying to see beyond the dread. What did it want? A howl escaped the gloom, swirling like a banshee's lament, slicing through the silence with abysmally cruel intent. She felt it creeping toward them, a palpable entity with a singular goal to reclaim what it had lost. "Together!" Rachel shouted, repeating their shared mantra, yet doubt clawed at her resolve. "Stay close." But staying close felt increasingly impossible. Just on the edge of the light, shadows writhed with renewed ferocity, as if they were alive or worse, as if they were getting stronger. Rachel's insides knotted painfully. What if she hesitated, a cold sweat making her grip slippery on Jake's arm? What if they're not the only ones bound to this place? "Mom!" Jake's voice rose sharply, filled with a desperate urgency. If they're waiting, we can't let them catch us off guard. What if we're part of a cycle?" Rachel stifled a gasp, each breath warming her throat like a flame but chilling her soul. Memories of her own past creaked in the corners of her mind. Her grandmother had often whispered tales of ancient curses, of Viking sword legends that held the souls of the lost. The hardship of her ancestors fused into this very ground, echoing like distant thunder. Could the sword be here? The words slipped from her tongue before she could pull them back, a sickening realization drenching her. They say it corrupts its keepers. That every time its power is drawn upon, it demands a new sacrifice. Jake's eyes widened, misty with fear and understanding. What if it wants us? Rachel whispered, her worst fears battling to the surface. She felt the air grow heavy around them, drawing tighter like a noose. From the shadows, a figure emerged, no longer just darkness but a twisted silhouette of a warrior, haunted and hollow. The figure's empty eyes glowed as if lit by embers of ghostly flames, burning with hunger. "You think you can escape the curse? You are beyond salvation." The voice echoed from every direction, a wretched cacophony of lament and rage. Rachel felt her stomach lurch. She was paralyzed, rooted by the fear that coiled around her limbs like frost. "Run!" she breathed, urgency seizing her words. With a sudden burst, they lurched forward, hands clasped as fear hammered against their bodies. But as they fled, the shadows surged, coiling around them, wrapping like venomous snakes, hissing promises of despair. Each step felt heavier, pulling her back toward the abyss. The walls shuddered, aging wood creaked eerily, almost alive with the connection to its cursed past. The sword, Jake shouted, straining against the dark tides. Mom! We need to break it. That's our only chance. I don't know where it is. Panic tinged Rachel's voice, the encroaching shadows fusing into a whirlwind of chaos. What if breaking it could unleash something even worse? The laughter of the entity twisted like daggers in the air, chilling the marrow in Rachel's bones. You will not escape your fate. You are bound to rise with what you unleash. Hope felt miles away as they plunged deeper into the darkness, drawing nearer to the epicenter of the curse. Fear knotted in Rachel's gut, her own thoughts unraveling. With each hurried step, they ventured further into the void, unaware of the true depths of the curse and the unspeakable terror they were about to unleash. A sudden crack of light pierced through the shadows, illuminating a grotesque sword embedded in the stone, a beacon of both hope and ruin. Mom! That's it. The sword. Jake's voice broke through, but a deeper dread soaked through Rachel's heart. Can we even trust it? She whispered, wonder and fear battling for control. But time was running out, and so was their escape. As the black mist surged forward, tendrils reaching for them, Rachel turned toward the sword, feeling the haunting pull of destiny. Could breaking it truly set them free, or would it just unleash something far more sinister? Do we dare to find out? She breathed, equal parts fear and determination mingling in her chest. What awaited them if they unleashed its power? The sword shimmered a deadly allure, its whispers echoing as the shadows thrashed around them. Rachel's decision loomed heavy, the moment was near. Rachel's heart thudded with fierce urgency, drowning out all rational thought. The sword's glint called to her, a siren's song promising salvation while cloaked in peril. Shadows twisted ominously, their dark fingers undulating as if celebrating their impending doom. Mom, we have to. Jake urged, eyes wide with a mixture of fear and desperation. He tugged on her arm, guiding her forward. His small form trembled, yet he stood resolute, the strength of resolve shining through his fright. Rachel hesitated, her breath catching in her throat. But what if it wants something from us? The laughter of the scattered shadows echoed, mocking her fear. The sword commands all who dare approach it, hissed, the voice merging into a chorus of eerie whispers. And you will serve the darkness or be devoured by it. What do we do? Jake's voice wobbled, snagging her attention like a lifeline thrown amidst a storm. Together, she kept repeating, trying to infuse their words with hope. Yet, the shadows tightened their grip, their clamoring laughter drowning the flicker of determination in her heart. With a sudden burst of courage, Rachel dove forward, pulling Jake along. Every part of her screamed to turn back, to flee, but the sword shimmered in the grip of darkness, a glimmer of desperate possibility. Could it break the cycle of horror, or would it lock them deeper into its nightmarish chain? The air shifted violently as they approached the sword, whipping their hair around them like manic spirits. A potent energy swirled, and she felt it reach for her, coiling around her mind as if tasting her essence. She stumbled and gave Jake a panicked glance. Do you feel that? Let us grab it. He gasped, eyes darting around, calculating threats. Okay, on 3. 1, 2, 3. They lunged for the sword, hands colliding against the cold, polished blade. As they held it together, an electric shock surged through them, forcing a scream from Jake's throat as visions of betrayal and ruin flashed like quicksilver behind Rachel's closed eyelids. Jake! She opened her eyes wide, the dark figures swirling tighter around them, angry, accusing. What is happening? Mom, I can't let it go. His face, twisted with fear, remained locked in place, as if the sword had tethered him with invisible chains. The shadows shrieked louder, brightening the gloom with their rage. He belongs to us. You will pay the price for your trespass. Rachel yanked desperately, trying to free him, but the sword resisted, pulling them both closer to its gleaming surface. Pulsing energy surged even stronger. Dark tendrils slid past her, wrapping around her limbs, and she staggered, feeling the relentless pull of the abyss behind her. No! We will not be part of this curse! Rachel cried, her entire being filled with a primal instinct to fight against the ancient wrath clawing at them. Suddenly, a vision struck her, a memory of her grandmother's stories, flickering in her mind. The only way to break a curse, she whispered, eyes wide with understanding. You must confront what binds you. Jake's struggles intensified, his voice rising in panic. What does that mean, Mom? Without thinking, Rachel drew closer to the sword, channeling every ounce of love she had for her son. Soft words slipped from her lips, lifting above the chaos. I want to let you take him. We are more than your prisoners. The sword shook violently in response, sending a shockwave that pushed her back. The shadows shrieked, recoiling momentarily. But it was just a breath of reprieve. The shadows regrouped, and the echoes of forgotten voices surged back, louder, more insistent. You are marked by the curse. The sacrifice will be paid. Desperation clawed at Rachel's throat, but she couldn't falter. Jake! Hold on. We can fight this together. The sword glowed brighter now, burning like the sun against the encroaching darkness. It sensed their fear, their determination. As if alive, the blade seemed to sway, drawing dark energy to it, the very soul of the curse that shackled them. Find the truth. Confront what binds you. The wind howled, disorienting her. But as confusion faded, she focused on the sword, forging strength from her own spirit. In an instant, the shadows lunged again, entwining Jake and Rachel in a whirlwind of clamoring voices. Your love means nothing. You cannot escape. With one determined thrust, Rachel grasped tighter, feeling their anguish. The sword vibrated violently as if resonating with her pulse. I am not afraid. And just as the shadows surged in a final assault, she pulled Jake closer, feeling their intertwined destinies collide. The sword screamed. In that moment, above the chaos, Rachel knew this was the moment of reckoning. But would fate be on their side? Her heart raced and her pulse quickened, echoing the uncertainty of what they might unleash in their fight. As they pressed against the sword, darkness swirled around them, tightening its grip. What will you give to set yourselves free? It taunted, a wicked smirk in its voice. The answer loomed, profound and chilling, yet time ran out. What lay next was beyond her comprehension. Whatever it takes, Rachel whispered, aware it might cost them everything. But the question lingered. As shadows seethed and the blade pulsed ominously, what would they be forced to sacrifice? The moment the shadows recoiled, a heavy silence fell, wrapping around Rachel and Jake like a frost. The sword pulsed as if sensing the fear that still throbbed between them. Whatever it takes, she said, but the gravity of that promise weighed heavily on her chest now. Mom, I feel it. Jake's voice sliced through the stillness, trembling with terror. His eyes were wide, reflecting the chaos around them, and Rachel could feel his hand growing weak in hers. The proximity to the sword radiated an energy that crackled and snapped, trying to pry them apart. Hold on, Jake. Don't let go. She cried, doubt gnawing at her resolve. The darkness crept closer, a thick veil of dread, guiding tortured souls into view, lost spirits whose faces twisted in agony. They clawed desperately at the air, whispering tales of abandonment and curses that had spanned lifetimes. The sword shone brighter, illuminating the grotesque silhouettes. You are not the first to seek power, it hissed, its voice slithering into her mind. Many before you have reached for it, and paid dearly. Rachel shuddered, the weight of history pressing onto her shoulders. What do you want from us? She demanded. The certainty in her voice trembled, caught on the edge of panic. Sacrifice, it echoed, the word like a drumbeat in her skull. Give me what you hold dear or embrace the darkness yourself. No. Rachel shouted, shaking her head. You can't have him. The shadows responded with a wind that howled through her, freezing her blood. Fear gripped her heart as she realized what the sword truly desired. It wasn't just their hands on its hilt, it wanted their love, their anguish. It craved an offering steeped in heartbreak. Mom Jake's voice was a whisper now. I can feel them. They're all around us. His tiny frame trembled, and despair flickered behind his eyes as more shapes emerged from the darkness, figures dripping with sorrow and regret, hands outstretched for the warmth of life they once knew. With each flicker of the sword's glow, more of the spectral echoes filled her ears, their cries tugging at her sanity. You must choose, Rachel. You must choose. Jake. In that moment, clarity struck her like lightning. The stories her grandmother told weren't mere tales, they held the key to breaking their chains. The truth lies beneath. She shouted, voice steadying. We must look within. The sword throbbed, and for the briefest moment, the darkness hesitated as if it understood. You seek to confront the darkness, but can you face the truths you hide? What truth? Rachel began, but before she could form the question, shadows rushed at them, their grasp seemingly liquid as they pulled her into a deep abyss of memories. She was dragged down, grappling with the echoes of her past, her failures, her doubts, the moment Jake was born, and the fear that had haunted her ever since. Don't let go. She screamed again, her voice hoarse, reaching toward her son as memories twisted around her. Was he in this with her? Were these his fears too, flooding together to form a chasm between them? Time stretched infinitely, but amid the chaos, one sensation remained: the warmth of her love for Jake. It hadn't faded, it burned fiercely, even in the face of encroaching despair. Mom! Jake's cry was distant but resonated in her heart. I can't hold on much longer. Rachel pushed against the tide of despair and clung to the one truth she knew deep within. Forgiveness. We need to forgive ourselves, she shouted, hoping he could hear her. The shadows recoiled at her words, their whispers turning into furious screeches. No. You cannot. Yes, we can. Love and forgiveness break the chains. She declared, gripping Jake's hand with every ounce of her being. The light from the sword pulsed brighter at the affirmation, a beacon in the dark, promising hope amidst the gloom. But as they fought to hold the bonds of love and acceptance, a new voice seeped into the cacophony, powerful and hungry. What will you sacrifice for this truth? It roared, booming through the coursing shadows. The ground beneath them trembled violently. As darkness closed in with an insatiable hunger, Rachel's heart stopped. The choice loomed large, dizzying, and desperate. Mom! I can't, Jake's small voice quivered as the shadows taunted them mercilessly. In that moment of mounting dread, she understood the chilling reality of their peril. Courage bubbled within her. But could love truly conquer what they faced? As fate hung in the balance, she drew a deep breath, ready to confront the darkest corners of their past. Together. She shouted, determination surging. Whatever it takes. But as the shadows conspired against them, what would emerge when they finally confronted their deepest fears? Would they break free from the curse or shatter into pieces? The scream pierced through the swirling darkness, vibrating against the walls of Rachel's mind. What will you sacrifice? The phrase echoed ominously, seeping into her bones and igniting a fire of desperation. She launched forward, shaking off the icy grasp of despair. The shadows writhed around her, hissing, spitting venomous whispers that clawed at her sanity. Jake! She shouted, straining against the encroaching gloom. Can you hear me? She felt his tiny hand slip, the grip tightening and loosening like he was lost in a dream. The shadows were alive with hunger, wrapping around them with crushing intent. I can't, Mom. His voice was a breath, teetering on the edge of sobs. They want me. And no. They can't have you. Rachel felt the dread clawing up her spine, threatening to pull her into an abyss of sorrow. We have to focus. But her words felt flimsy, mere strings against a suffocating tide. She could hear the tortured whispers of the lost souls swirling around, twisting past her. Forgive, forgive. They cried. The sword pulsed, its energy flickering with every desperate heartbeat. What was it asking of them? What truth did they need to face? Rachel knew the answer lay buried deep in the shadows of her past, but memories swirled like a storm, fear, pain, and regret crashing against the edges of her consciousness. Strength, we need strength. She gasped, rooting her thoughts in every moment she had fought for Jake. The sleepless nights, the desperate prayers, the overwhelming love that would crush her if she lost him now. That love felt like a shield, but it was also a noose drawing tighter with every shadowy whisper. The air thickened, darkening as figures materialized, faces emerging from the void. She recognized them, people she had wronged, choices she regretted, names whispered on her conscience. Friends long gone, a lover lost to tragedy, and the haunting gaze of her estranged mother. You abandoned us, they chanted, eyes empty, mouths twisted in agony. No. Rachel shouted back, her voice filled with unyielding defiance. I didn't. I tried. But the words fell flat, swallowed by the shadows. They could sense her guilt, feeding off the darkness that threatened to consume her. Choose. They taunted, and Rachel sensed the sword vibrating wildly, pulsing to the rhythm of their despair. What will you give for your son? Rachel turned to Jake, anguish flooding her chest. You must trust me. I'll find a way. But the fear etched into Jake's features paralyzed her. He trembled under the weight of the figures, disembodied hands clawing, wanting to pull him into their torment. Suddenly, a flash of illumination erupted from the sword, revealing an intricate etching along its blade, an image of two entwined figures, one light and one dark. Rachel's heart raced. No, it can't be, Mom, what is it? Jake's small voice trembled. It's us, she whispered, realization dawning with chilling clarity. We're part of this curse. We weren't meant to wield it without facing our past. Facing what? He asked, confusion mixing with dread. I don't know yet, but we have to do it together, Rachel replied, gripping his hand tighter. Forgiveness, it means facing everything, the pain, the old wounds. But the moment hung, pregnant with danger, as the shadows surged closer, relentless in their pursuit. What will you sacrifice? They howled, their chorus increasing in volume, drowning out the beating of Rachel's heart. No, Rachel gasped, breath caught in her throat. I won't to lose you. Not like this. Another surge of the sword, its light flaring brilliantly, sent the figures flying back for just a moment. But Rachel understood that the next seconds would decide everything. Jake! She cried, desperation threading through her voice. Whatever I have to face, we can do this together. The shadows pushed forward, darkness closing in on every side. What truth would they confront? And in that moment of tension, the very essence of their journey hung suspended, trembling in the air, waiting for them to take the next step. Could they arm themselves with forgiveness and fight back the pain, or would the past shatter their future? In the abiding silence that followed, a chilling whisper slithered through the void. What are you willing to lose? Rachel's heart pounded, the whispers of the shadows clawing at her sanity. She glanced at Jake, his face streaked with fear and confusion. The sword hummed with energy, an unrelenting pulse that resonated with the chaotic rhythm of their present nightmare. Jake, we must confront our past. It's our only way out, she urged, desperation threading through her voice. We have to forgive ourselves, let go of the guilt. It's holding us captive. The air around them crackled, as if resonating with her words. Those figures in the darkness flickered, momentarily halted by the power of intent. Choose. Came their echoed demand. She felt every wound, every moment of doubt and regret pressing in around her like an unbearable weight. Memories spilled forth, one by one, the day her father left, her mother's disappointed gaze, the friend she'd betrayed, her dreams dashed by mistakes. Each recollection clawed at her heart, each a reminder of her imperfection, spinning a web of despair that threatened to ensnare them both. Tears blurred her vision, but she refused to blink. "I choose love. I choose to forgive." Her voice rang out defiantly. "I will not let you take us." And with those words, a fierce light erupted from the sword, illuminating the shadows swirling angrily around them. For a moment, time seemed to freeze. The darkness twisted, recoiling from the display of hope and determination. "Mom, I can't." Jake's voice trembled, but Rachel held tighter, channeling all her love into that one connection. "Yes, you can," she insisted, firm and resolute. "We're stronger together. You can do this." The sword's glow intensified, casting aside the growing darkness that seemed to weigh upon them. Fresh pain clawed at her heart, memories surfacing as each specter grew restless, the agony of loss shifting into something tangible, fear coursing through their forms. "What will you sacrifice?" The shadows gnashed their teeth, their voices intertwining with savagery. With every passing moment, she felt it, the fragility of their connection, the dark pull of the abyss begging her to succumb to despair once again. Yet, she refused. Despite the torrent of emotion surging within, she planted her feet firmly. "I will not let you take him." Her voice thundered through fear, striking a chord within the shadows. "He is not yours." With that declaration, the otherworldly energies collided. The shadows jerked violently, the horrific faces morphing into grotesque masks of rage. Rage coursed through the air, attacking her like frigid knives. "You think love will save you?" They hissed cruelly, angry tendrils wrapping around Rachel like a vice. But Rachel pressed her palm against the sword, drawing forth its power. "It can. Because the love we share is unbreakable. It's the light in the dark." Jake's terrified eyes sparkled with realization, a flicker of hope igniting. "Mom!" he exclaimed. "You're right. We can fight them with our love. Together." Rachel shouted, determination solidifying her resolve. As they focused on that bond, the warmth of their connection surged through her fingertips, pouring into the blade. A blinding light radiated outward, driving back the darkness with a ferocity she had never imagined. Rachel could feel the shadows thrashing, lost to chaos, their power waning under the fire of unyielding love. "No!" shrieked the darkness, voices clashing in furious harmony. With every ounce of strength, Rachel and Jake channeled their pain into the light, releasing forgiveness for the past, unfurling the bound chains of guilt that had shackled them for so long. The shadows writhed, their forms twisting under the insufferable weight of the truth that enveloped them like a tidal wave. Suddenly, with one final pulse of energy, the sword shattered with a sound like thunder, illuminating the entire basement. Fragments of light rained down, dancing motes that bathed the room in warmth, unearthing the shadows in their tight embrace. The figures screamed, their forms dissolving into the air with haunting echoes. "Jake! Hold on!" Rachel grasped her son tighter as the vibrations surged, the darkness losing its grip around them, receding like a tide pulled back to the ocean. When the dust settled, they tumbled to the ground, breathless, surrounded by an eerie calm. The sword was gone, and so was the presence that had haunted them. A profound silence enveloped them. Did we really do it?" Jake asked, breathless and wide-eyed. Rachel pulled him into her arms, relief pouring through her like a warm balm. "I think we did. We faced the darkness together." A stunning sense of lightness filled the air, the palpable dread that had haunted their home lifting like morning fog. "We made it, Jake. We're free." Rachel finally allowed tears of joy to overflow, the release felt overwhelming. The fears of the past lay scattered like fallen leaves, dissipating into the ether. As they embraced, she promised to face whatever remnants of their journey remained, to carry the lessons learned through the trials they triumphed over. They could find light because they had loved fiercely, unwaveringly, embodying a bond forged from the deepest struggles. A quiet peace enveloped them, the room dim as twilight fell outside, but for Rachel and Jake, new beginnings shone within. "Let us go home," Rachel whispered, hope blooming anew in her heart. Together, they stepped out into the world, leaving behind the remnants of darkness, prepared for whatever came next. But as they crossed the threshold, an insistent voice lingered in the air, murmurings woven into fate, reminders that this was merely the beginning of a new story, dawn whispering dreams yet unfurling in Edgewater. You need to subscribe now to our channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm, every click counts. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending, I want to hear from you. And please, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions. Let's keep this community thriving.